He's so handsome. Hush. I can't get my eyes off him. Wait, he's also staring at me. Her heart skipped a bit as her gaze landed on a handsome man across the crowd in the exquisite room celebrating. The terrace stone was cool beneath her feet when she slipped off her heels. Mistake number 1. Around her, the villa pulsed with celebration. Strangers toasted a couple she'd never met, their laughter spilling across manicured gardens that terraced down toward vineyards she could barely see in the darkness. String lights swayed overhead, casting restless shadows. Elena pressed her champagne flute to her collarbone, letting condensation slide down her throat. The heat had followed them from Rome, thick and insistent. She felt his gaze before she saw him. Her skin registered it first. Wait. Question. She turned, scanning the crowd gathered near the fountain, and found him leaning against the villa's sun-warmed wall. Dark suit jacket abandoned. Sleeves rolled to his elbows. He didn't look away when their eyes met. Mistake number 2. Elena crossed the terrace. The crowd seemed to part without effort, conversations dissolving into background noise. He straightened as she approached, and she caught the slight hitch in his breathing. You've been watching me. Not a question. His mouth curved. You've been letting me. Presumptuous. Observant. He took her empty glass, set it on the ledge beside his own. His fingers were long, precise. You've checked your phone 4 times in the last 20 minutes. You're looking for an exit. And you're offering one. Depends what you're running from. Elena tilted her head, studying him. Strong jaw. Eyes so dark they swallowed light. A small scar threaded through his left eyebrow, the kind earned rather than given. She'd come to this wedding alone, accepting a distant cousin's invitation because anywhere felt better than home. She'd expected boredom, pleasant scenery, too much wine. Not this. I don't run, she said. Then walk. He gestured toward a path that curved away from the reception, disappearing into shadow. There's a garden. No one uses it during parties. She should have returned to the safety of small talk and champagne. Should have found her table, made polite conversation with strangers who'd forget her face by morning. Instead, she stepped off the terrace. The path wound through roses that released perfume when they brushed against them. Music faded behind them, replaced by crickets and the whisper of wind through grape leaves. He walked close enough that their shoulders nearly touched, far enough that the space between them vibrated with possibility. The garden opened suddenly. A circular courtyard paved in old stone, enclosed by cypress trees. A fountain stood silent at its center, dry for decades. Beyond the low wall, moonlight painted the vineyards silver. Elena gripped the wall's edge. Below them, the land fell away in geometric precision, row after row of vines marching toward distant hills. The air smelled of earth and growing things. Beautiful, she breathed. Yes. But he was looking at her. He turned. He'd moved closer, near enough now that she could see gold flecks in those dark eyes, could count the pulse beating in his throat. What are we doing? Her voice came out lower than intended. I don't know. His hand rose, hovering near her face. Waiting. Tell me to stop. Elena leaned into his palm instead. His touch was careful, reverent. Fingertips traced her jaw, her throat, the curve of her shoulder. She felt her breathing change, watched his eyes track every shift in her expression. When he bent his head, she met him halfway. The first kiss tasted like revelation. She'd been kissed before. This was different. This was a conversation conducted in sighs and pressure, in the scrape of teeth and the silk of tongues. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and his groan vibrated through her chest. They broke apart gasping. Ground rules, he said roughly. Tonight only. The words left her mouth before thought caught up. No past. No future. Something flickered across his face. Relief or regret, she couldn't tell. Names. Do they matter? No. He kissed her again, deeper this time, backing her against the wall. stone pressed cold against her spine, contrasting with the heat of his body. His hand slid into her hair, angling her head, and she bit his lower lip in response. The sound he made went straight through her. They learned each other slowly despite the urgency. His hands mapped her curves while hers discovered the planes of muscle beneath his shirt. She found the scar on his ribs, felt him shiver when she traced it. He discovered the sensitive spot below her ear, exploited it ruthlessly until her knees weakened. "Here?" she asked when he lifted her onto the wall. "Unless you'd prefer an audience." She pulled him between her thighs in answer. They moved together like they'd done this before, like muscle memory from another life. She learned he was patient when she expected urgency, demanding when she anticipated gentleness. He discovered she was bolder than her reserved exterior suggested, that she took what she wanted and gave back generously. Between kisses, they traded confessions in whispers. "I've never done this," she admitted. "Liar." His mouth traced her collarbone. "Not lying. Not like this. Not with someone I'll never see again." He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. "Does that make it easier? Does it for you?" "I don't know yet." They came together again, and this time there was something desperate in it. A recognition that dawn would erase this. That morning would return them to separate lives, separate worlds. The temporary nature didn't diminish the intensity, sharpened it. Hours dissolved. The moon tracked across the sky. They spoke and touched and discovered, creating a universe that existed only in this garden, only in this darkness. When the sky began to pale, they dressed slowly. Elena's hands shook buttoning her dress. He noticed, steadied them with his own. "Thank you," she said. He smiled, sad around the edges. "For what?" "Tonight. This. Everything." They walked back separately. She went first, not looking back. At the villa's entrance, she paused, gave him enough time to disappear into whatever life waited for him. She flew home the next morning. 6 months passed. Elena stood in her childhood kitchen, watching her mother's hands flutter with excitement. The diamond caught afternoon light, throwing rainbows across familiar walls. "I can't believe I kept it secret this long," her mother gushed. "But he wanted to meet you properly first, not just tell you over the phone. He's changed everything, darling. I never thought I could feel this way again." Elena forced a smile. "I'm happy for you, Mom." The penthouse occupied the kind of real estate that existed in a different economic atmosphere. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city like a postcard, lights glittering against the darkening sky. Elena stepped off the elevator into warmth and laughter, the scent of expensive catering, the clink of crystal. Her mother had outdone herself. "There you are." Her mother materialized, radiant in cream silk. She looked younger somehow, softened at the edges. "Come meet everyone. Come meet him." Elena let herself be pulled through clusters of guests. Strangers smiled. She smiled back, her face a practiced mask. Her heart hammered against her ribs for reasons she refused to examine. Then she saw him. Silver hair. Tall frame that carried a well-cut suit with ease. He turned at her mother's approach, and his eyes crinkled with genuine warmth. Kind eyes. The kind that belonged to a man who'd earned his wealth rather than inherited it. "Elena." His handshake was firm, paternal. "I've heard so much about you. Your mother can't stop talking about her brilliant daughter. You're very patient then." The words came automatically, smooth and empty. He laughed. Relief flooded her. This was manageable. A nice man who made her mother happy. She could handle this. "Let me introduce you to my son," he said, gesturing across the room. "He's around here somewhere, probably hiding by the windows. He's not much for crowds either." The floor tilted. Elena followed his gaze and found him, silhouetted against the skyline. Dark suit that fit like sin. One hand in his pocket, the other holding a glass of scotch he wasn't drinking. He was staring at the view with an intensity that suggested he was seeing something very different from city lights. Then he turned. Their eyes met. The world contracted to that single point of contact. She watched recognition slam into him. Watched color drain from his face before rushing back. His knuckles whitened around the glass. Her lungs forgot their purpose. "Marco!" His father called, oblivious. "Come meet my beautiful bride's daughter." He walked toward them like a man approaching execution. Each step measured, controlled. But she could see the tension in his shoulders, the muscle jumping in his jaw. Close was worse. She could see the faint shadow of stubble. The hollow of his throat where she'd pressed her lips. The exact shade of his eyes that she'd memorized in Moonlight. "Elena." His voice was carefully neutral. "Pleasure to meet you." He extended his hand. She took it because refusing would raise questions. His palm was warm, calloused in the same places she remembered. The contact sent electricity racing up her arm, and from the way his pupils dilated, he felt it too. Likewise. The word tasted like glass. They released each other too quickly. His father noticed, frowned slightly. "I was just telling Elena about your work in Milan." Her mother jumped in, mercifully clueless. "Marco handles the European offices. He's rarely home, which is why you two haven't met before now." "Milan." Elena's throat was dry. "How cosmopolitan." "It has its moments." His eyes held hers, loaded with meaning. "Though some trips are more memorable than others." "Oh, you should hear about the wedding he attended last summer," his father said. "Some cousin's destination affair in Tuscany. Marco said the villa was spectacular." The room spun. "Actually, I need some air." Elena's voice sounded distant to her own ears. "The view from the balcony is stunning." She escaped before anyone could follow, sliding through glass doors onto a terrace that wrapped around the penthouse corner. Cold air hit her face. She gripped the railing, dragging oxygen into her lungs. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. The door clicked behind her. She didn't turn. "You need to go back inside. We need to talk." His voice was rough, stripped of the politeness he'd worn in front of their parents. "There's nothing to talk about." "Don't." One word sharp as a blade. He moved beside her, careful not to touch, staring out at the city. "Don't pretend this isn't happening." Elena forced herself to look at him. Mistake. The carefully constructed distance shattered. She could see his pulse racing. Could see the same panic she felt reflected in his eyes. "Your father is marrying my mother." "I'm aware. In Italy, we said." "I know what we said." His hands gripped the railing. "One night. No past. No future." Apparently the universe has a sick sense of humor. A sound escaped him, caught between a laugh and something darker. "When did they meet?" "4 months ago. Some charity gala." Elena's mind raced backward. 2 months after Italy. While she'd been trying to forget the taste of his mouth, her mother had been falling in love with his father. Christ! He scrubbed a hand across his face. "This is insane. We bury it." The words came out harder than intended. "What happened in Italy stays there. We were strangers. We remain strangers. You think I don't know that?" He turned to face her finally, and the anguish in his expression stole her breath. "You think I want to sit across from you at family dinners remembering how you sounded when—" "Don't." She cut him off. "Don't finish that sentence." His jaw clenched. "We can't tell them. Obviously. It would destroy them." "I know." Silence stretched between them, heavy with everything they couldn't say. Inside, laughter filtered through the glass. Their parents stood close together, her mother's hand on his father's arm, both glowing with happiness Elena hadn't seen on her mother's face in years. "They deserve this," she said quietly. "They deserve to be happy." "Yeah." His voice roughened. "They do. So we what? Pretend we're meeting for the first time? Play stepfamily? Do we have a choice?" Elena wanted to scream, wanted to grab him and demand the universe rewrite itself. Instead, she straightened her spine. "No. We don't. He studied her profile. Can you do this? See me at holidays and weddings and pretend I'm just your mother's future stepson? The question landed like a physical blow. Could she? Could she sit across from him at Thanksgiving and pass the potatoes while remembering how his weight felt pressing her into stone? Could she smile through toasts and dance at their parents' wedding and not recall the way he'd whispered against her skin? Can you? She countered. I don't know. At least he was honest. The door opened again. Her mother poked her head out, beaming. There you both are. Perfect. We have an announcement. Dread pooled in Elena's stomach. Mom! Come inside, darling. Both of you. They had no choice. They followed her back into the warmth, the noise, the normalcy that felt like a fever dream. Their parents stood at the center of the room. Her mother raised her glass, and the crowd quieted. Thank you all for coming tonight. We wanted to celebrate with the people we love most. She gazed at her fiancé with nauseating adoration. We've decided not to wait. Life is too short, and when you know, you know. Elena's nails bit into her palms. The wedding will be in 8 weeks, her mother continued, glowing. Small and intimate. And we want our children at the center of it all. She looked directly at Elena and Marco. Every preparation, every decision. This is about joining our families, and we want you both deeply involved. The crowd erupted in applause. Marco's Scotch glass shattered against the floor. The bakery smelled like vanilla and lies. Elena sat rigid in the cream velvet chair, watching the pastry chef describe fondant techniques with the enthusiasm of someone discussing Renaissance art. Beside her, Marco's thigh pressed against hers. Not quite touching. A millimeter of space that screamed louder than contact. He shifted. Their legs brushed. Heat shot through her body like a match strike. What do you think? Her mother's voice cut through the haze. The lemon lavender or the champagne raspberry? Elena blinked. 4 cake samples sat before them, delicate forks waiting. She hadn't tasted a single one. The lemon, Marco said. His voice was steady, controlled. But she felt the tension vibrating through him. It's sophisticated without being pretentious. I agree. Elena forced the words past the tightness in her throat. The lemon. Their parents beamed at this miraculous consensus. The chef made notes. Marco's hand rested on the table, close enough that she could see the veins in his wrist, the same wrist she'd gripped while. She reached for her water glass. Drained it. The venue walkthrough was worse. The garden estate sprawled across manicured acres, all roses and fountain statuary. The coordinator paired them naturally, assuming they'd want sibling opinions separate from their parents' romantic vision. The ceremony could be here. The woman gestured to a pergola dripping with wisteria. Sunset light. Absolutely magical. Elena nodded mechanically. Marco stood close enough that she could feel his body heat, could hear his breathing change when the coordinator mentioned the word, intimacy. And for photos, we recommend the East Terrace. The coordinator led them down a stone path. Their parents wandered ahead, hand in hand, leaving them alone in the wake. The light there is particularly romantic in the evening. Romantic, Marco echoed. Something bitter edged the word. Elena glanced at him. Found him already looking at her. The expression on his face made her stomach clench. You two are so lucky, the coordinator continued, oblivious. Gaining a sister, a brother. Built-in best friends. Marco's laugh was sharp. Lucky. Right. The family dinner should have been safe. Public. Witnesses everywhere. But his father stood, glass raised, and smiled at them with paternal warmth that felt like a knife. I want to hear from the kids, he announced. Elena, Marco. Tell us what you think about this crazy adventure your parents are embarking on. The restaurant noise faded. 20 pairs of eyes turned their direction. Elena stood because sitting seemed worse. Marco rose beside her, and suddenly they were shoulder to shoulder, the scent of his cologne wrapping around her. Bergamot and cedar. The same scent that had clung to her skin for days after Italy. Her hands trembled. She gripped her wine glass tighter. "To new beginnings," she started. Her voice sounded distant. "My mother deserves happiness. She deserves someone who sees her the way your father does." "And my father," Marco continued, his arm brushing hers as he raised his glass, "deserves someone who brings light back into his life. Someone who makes him laugh the way your mother does." They were supposed to clink glasses. Toast. Male. Instead, they stood frozen, trapped in each other's orbit. His eyes held hers, and she saw everything he wasn't saying. The want, the frustration, the same desperate confusion that kept her awake at 3 a.m. "To family," he finished, voice rough. The word felt obscene. They sat. Their parents kissed across the table, and Elena focused on her untouched risotto while trying not to feel Marco's presence like a brand against her side. The car ride started in silence. Rehearsal dinner had run late. Their parents had taken a separate car, some excuse about stopping for a nightcap. Elena found herself alone with Marco in his sleek sedan, city lights streaking past tinted windows. He drove with the same intensity he did everything. Precise, controlled, knuckles white on the steering wheel. "You did well tonight," she said finally. "Anything to cut the tension." "Lying, you mean? Survival." He exhaled sharply. "Is that what we're calling this? What else would you call it?" "Torture." The word came out flat. "Honest." He stopped at a red light, turned to face her. "I haven't stopped thinking about you." Elena's breath caught. "Don't. You asked." The light turned green. He accelerated smoothly, but his jaw was clenched. 6 months. I've tried. God knows I've tried. But every time I close my eyes. Stop. Do you think about it? She should lie. Should shut this down before it detonated everything their parents were building. Yes. The admission tasted like surrender. His hands tightened on the wheel. "Christ, Elena. It doesn't matter. It can't matter. You think I don't know that?" He pulled onto the highway, merging with traffic that thinned as they left downtown. "You think I want to feel this way about someone I can never? Then don't." She turned in her seat, anger rising to meet her panic. "Stop looking at me like that. Stop standing so close. Stop making this harder than it already is. You think you don't do the same thing?" He shot back. "You think I don't notice when you hold your breath every time I walk into a room? When your pupils dilate if I get too close?" Heat flooded her face. "You're imagining things." "Am I?" He changed lanes sharply. They were alone on this stretch of road now, buildings giving way to darker spaces. "Because in that garden today, when the coordinator left us alone for 5 minutes, you looked at my mouth 3 times. I did not. You did." His voice dropped, dangerous and raw. "And at dinner when I stood next to you, your pulse was racing so hard I could see it in your throat." Elena pressed back against the car door, trying to create distance in the confined space. "This can't happen." "I know. Our parents." "I know." He pulled off the highway onto a dark side road. Cut the engine. Silence rushed in, broken only by their ragged breathing. They sat in the darkness, not looking at each other. "I keep thinking about that garden," he said finally. Quietly. "The way you tasted. The sounds you made. Marco. The way you said my name. Except you didn't know it was my name then, did you? You didn't know anything about me except how I felt inside you." The words landed like physical blows. Elena's nails bit into her palms. "We agreed. One night. That was before." "Before what?" "Before I knew I'd have to see you every day and pretend I don't want to." He broke off, scrubbing his hands through his hair. "This is insane. You're going to be my stepsister." The word hung between them, ugly and impossible. "I should hate this," Elena whispered. "I should hate you for making this complicated." "Do you?" She turned to face him then. Found him watching her with an intensity that stole oxygen from the car. "No." He leaned closer. She could see the war happening behind his eyes. Want versus honor. Desire versus duty. If I kiss you right now. His voice was barely audible. We can't undo it. I know. His phone shattered the moment. The ringtone blared obscenely loud in the quiet car. His father's name glowed on the screen. Marco stared at it like a snake. Didn't move. Rang. And rang. Finally he answered. Hey, Dad. His voice was remarkably steady. Yeah, we're on our way. Traffic. I'll have her home soon. He ended the call. Started the engine. Pulled back onto the road without looking at her. They drove the rest of the way in silence that pressed against Elena's lungs like deep water. He pulled up to her building. Put the car in park. Still didn't look at her. Good night, Elena. He fled. 2 days later, her mother called during Elena's lunch break. Darling, I need your help with something special. Her voice bubbled with excitement. It's Marco's birthday next month. His father wants to throw him a surprise party at their lake house, but he needs help planning. You know, a woman's touch. Elena's stomach dropped. Mom, I'm sure he can. It's an entire weekend. Just you and his father, getting everything ready before the guests arrive. Won't that be lovely? Bonding time with your new family. When? Next weekend. You'll drive up Friday, spend Saturday preparing party Sunday. I can't go, unfortunately. Prior commitment I can't break. But you'll have such fun. Elena closed her eyes. Who else will be there? Just you two initially. Then Marco arrives Saturday evening. Doesn't suspect a thing. An entire weekend. Alone with Marco at a secluded lake house. Perfect, Elena heard herself say. I'd love to help. The lake house crouched against the waterline like something from a different era. All dark wood and wide windows, surrounded by pines that blocked out neighboring properties. Elena's car crunched over gravel as she pulled up Friday evening, and the isolation hit her immediately. No lights except the house. No sounds except water lapping against the dock. His father greeted her warmly, tour already planned. Marco doesn't arrive until tomorrow night. Gives us time to get everything perfect. They spent Saturday in careful choreography. Hanging decorations. Arranging furniture. His father talked about his son with obvious pride, and Elena smiled and nodded while her stomach twisted itself into knots. By evening, his father checked his watch. Your mother and I are heading back to the city for a dinner we couldn't reschedule. We'll return tomorrow afternoon before guests arrive. You'll be all right here alone. Lone. The word echoed. Of course, she lied. His car disappeared down the long driveway, taillights swallowed by trees. Silence rushed in. Elena stood in the expansive living room, surrounded by birthday decorations that felt like accusations, and tried to remember how to breathe. She lasted until midnight. Sleep was impossible. She tried. Lay in the guest room staring at ceiling beams while her mind replayed every moment in Marco's car, every almost touch, every loaded glance. Finally she gave up, pulled on jeans and a sweater and slipped outside. The dock stretched into darkness, wood solid beneath her bare feet. Water reflected scattered stars, and the air smelled like pine and coming autumn. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to find stillness in the quiet. Couldn't sleep either. She spun. Marco stood at the dock's entrance, backlit by the house. He wore dark jeans and a shirt with sleeves pushed to his elbows. Her heart slammed against her ribs. You're early, she managed. Finished work sooner than expected. Saw the lights on. He walked toward her slowly, hands in pockets. Didn't expect to find you here. Your father asked me to help. I know. He told me. Marco stopped a few feet away. Close enough that she could see the exhaustion around his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. This was a setup, wasn't it? Getting us alone together. They don't know. Don't they? He laughed without humor. My father keeps talking about how well we get along. How natural it seems. Elena turned back to the water. We're convincing then. Are we convincing? Or are we just terrible liars? The question hung between them. She heard him move closer, felt the dock shift under his weight. In Italy, he said quietly. You told me you'd never done that before. Anonymous. Temporary. I hadn't. Why did you? She considered lying. Considered all the safe answers that would maintain distance. Because it felt like the only honest thing I'd done in months. No expectations. No performance. Just existing in a moment. And now everything's performance. She faced him. Smiling at cake tastings. Toasting at dinners. Pretending you're just someone I'm related to by marriage. His jaw tightened. You think it's easier for me? Sitting next to you and remembering exactly how you sound when you... He cut himself off. Christ, Elena. I can't do this. Then don't. Go back inside. You know I can't do that either. They stood caught in the space between approach and retreat. The dock creaked beneath them. Water moved in the darkness below. Talk to me, he said finally. Like we did in Italy. No pretense. So she did. They sat on the dock's edge, legs dangling, and peeled back layers they'd built since that garden. She told him about growing up with a single mother, about the pressure of being everything to someone. He told her about losing his mother young, about building walls his father had only recently started to breach. That night meant something, Marco said eventually. His voice was raw. I know it wasn't supposed to. But it did. Elena's throat tightened. For me too. That makes this worse. I know. He turned to face her. If circumstances were different. But they're not. If they were, he continued relentless. Would you want this? Us. The question stole her air. She looked at him in the starlight, at the honesty carved into his features, and couldn't lie. Yes. His breath caught. Elena. But circumstances aren't different. They are what they are. So we just suffer through family holidays. Watch each other fall in love with other people. Pretend that night never happened. What choice do we have? He reached out, his hand hovering near her face. Waiting. She should pull back. Should stand up and walk away and save them both from this. Instead, she leaned into his palm. His thumb traced her cheekbone. She felt the tremor in his fingers, saw want and anguish war in his expression. He leaned closer. She tilted her face up. Their breath mingled. Headlights swept across the trees. They sprang apart like teenagers caught. Scrambled to their feet. Marco ran a hand through his hair while Elena smoothed her sweater with shaking hands. They said tomorrow, she whispered. Plans change. They walked back to the house separately. Careful distance between them. By the time their parents' car pulled up, they were in the kitchen. Elena washing dishes that didn't need washing while Marco studied decorations with false concentration. Surprise! His father called, entering with Elena's mother. We finished early, decided to come back tonight. Hope you two haven't been bored. Not at all, Marco said smoothly. Elena's been great company. Her mother beamed. I'm so glad you're getting along. It makes this so much easier. Morning brought coffee and easy laughter. Elena sat at the breakfast table, watching her mother glow with happiness, and felt something shrivel inside her chest. His father reached across, squeezing her mother's hand. You know what makes me happiest about all this? Watching Marco and Elena bond. It already feels like a real family. The coffee turned to ash in Elena's mouth. The party started at noon. Friends and colleagues filled the house, toasting Marco with genuine affection. Elena smiled and made small talk and drank wine faster than she should. By late afternoon, the walls were closing in. She slipped away, climbing stairs to the second floor. Found an empty bedroom and closed the door, pressing her back against it. Her head swam pleasantly. The wine had smoothed her edges, made everything slightly unreal. Footsteps in the hallway. Tense. The door handle turned. Marco stepped inside. Their eyes met. He closed the door behind him. The lock clicked into place. The bedroom was half dark, afternoon light filtering through drawn curtains. Elena's pulse hammered in her ears, drowning out the party noise below. Marco stood with his back against the door, chest rising and falling too fast. Elena. Her name came out rough. Question. A warning. She should tell him to leave. Should unlock the door and return to the safety of crowds and pretense. Instead, she crossed the room. His hands caught her waist. We can't. I know. Our parents are downstairs. I know. If anyone finds out. She kissed him. He made a sound low in his throat, somewhere between surrender and relief. His fingers tightened on her hips, pulling her against him, and the careful control they'd maintained for weeks shattered. This wasn't the slow exploration of Italy. This was desperation with teeth. She tugged at his shirt. Buttons scattered. His hands found the zipper of her dress, dragged it down with shaking fingers. Fabric pooled at their feet. They stumbled toward the bed, mouths fused, trying to get closer, trying to erase months of restraint with touch. He pressed her into the mattress. She arched against him. Their bodies remembered this geography, moved with recognition that bypassed thought. But it was different now. Fiercer. Edged with something that tasted like grief. Look at me, he demanded, voice wrecked. She opened her eyes. Found his face above hers. Intensity that stole her breath. They held each other's gaze while they moved together, and she saw everything reflected back. Shame. The terrible knowledge of what this would cost. Her nails scored his shoulders. He groaned against her throat. They collided again and again, trying to satisfy something that went deeper than physical need, trying to claim this moment before reality reasserted itself. When she came apart, his name broke from her lips. He followed seconds later, face buried in her hair, body shaking. Silence rushed in. They lay tangled in sheets, breathing ragged. Elena felt his heartbeat against her ribs, felt sweat cooling on her skin, felt reality creeping back like cold water. What had they done? Marco moved first, rolled away, sat on the edge of the bed with his head in his hands. His spine curved in defeat. Christ! The word was barely audible. Elena pulled the sheet around herself, suddenly freezing. Marco! Don't! He stood, reaching for his discarded clothes. His shirt was destroyed, buttons scattered across hardwood. He stared at it like a crime scene. We can't. I can't hear you say this was a mistake. Wasn't it? He laughed, sharp and bitter. Of course it was. But I don't want to hear it from you. She dressed with trembling hands. Her dress zipper stuck. She struggled with it, panic rising, until his fingers brushed hers away. He zipped her up with devastating gentleness, then stepped back like she'd burned him. This can never happen again. His voice was flat. Final. I know. I mean it, Elena. We're done. Whatever this is, it ends now. The words landed like blows. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Our parents get married in 2 weeks. We smile and play family and bury this so deep it might as well have never happened. Agreed. He finally looked at her. His eyes held anguish that mirrored her own. I wish I'd never gone to that wedding in Italy. The confession hung between them. Liar, she whispered. His jaw clenched. Yeah, I'm a liar. They stood in the wreckage of what they'd done. Downstairs, someone called Marco's name. Birthday boy missing from his own party. You go first, he said. I'll follow in 10 minutes. Elena walked to the door on legs that barely held her. Paused with her hand on the lock. Marco. Don't. Please. Just don't. Left. The party swallowed her immediately. Her mother appeared, wine-flushed and smiling. There you are. We're about to do the cake. Where's the birthday boy? Upstairs. Taking a phone call. Work on his birthday. Her mother shook her head fondly. That boy needs to learn to relax. You're good for him, you know. He smiles more when you're around. The irony tasted like bile. Elena made it through cake. Through toasts and laughter and his father's speech about family and new beginnings. She stood across the room from Marco, careful not to look at him, hyper-aware of every breath he took. When their eyes finally met over the crowd, the distance between them felt like continents. She caught him staring at her wrist, where his fingers had pressed hard enough to leave shadows. His expression shuttered. He turned away, engaging an uncle in conversation, and Elena excused herself to the bathroom where she gripped the sink and tried to remember who she'd been before that Italian garden. The drive home was automatic. Her apartment felt like a stranger's space. She showered until the water ran cold, trying to wash away his scent. His touch, the memory of how he'd said her name. Didn't work. 2 weeks passed in agonizing slow motion. Final dress fittings. Rehearsal schedules. Her mother glowing with anticipation while Elena moved through responsibilities like a ghost. She saw Marco twice. Once at a final venue check, where they maintained 3 feet of distance and spoke in polite monosyllables. Once at the rehearsal dinner, where they sat at opposite ends of the table and didn't exchange a single word. He looked hollowed out. She probably did too. The morning before the wedding, Elena woke feeling wrong. Nauseous. Exhausted despite 10 hours of sleep. She blamed stress. Blamed guilt. Dragged herself to the bathroom. Her period was late. How late? She counted backward. Counted again. 3 weeks. The room tilted. Not possible. They'd been careful. Mostly careful. That first time in the bedroom, they'd been too desperate, too reckless, but afterward. Her hands shook as she pulled out her phone. Searched nearby pharmacies. Found one open early. She drove there in pajamas, bought 3 different brands of pregnancy tests, and drove home in silence that rang in her ears. 5 minutes. That's all it took to destroy everything. She sat on the bathroom floor, watching lines appear on plastic sticks. 2 lines. Pregnant. She took the second test. Pregnant. Third. Pregnant. Elena's phone buzzed. Her mother's name lit the screen. Darling. Big day tomorrow. Please tell me you're getting sleep. I want you rested for photos. Mom, her voice cracked. Are you crying? Oh, sweetheart. No. I'm emotional too. But happy tears, right? We're gaining a family. Elena stared at the positive tests lined up on the counter. At the proof of what she and Marco had done. At the evidence that would detonate both their parents' happiness. Right, she whispered. Happy tears. Get some rest. Love you. See you bright and early. The call ended. Elena sat in the silence of her bathroom, pregnant with her soon-to-be stepbrother's child, and watched her entire world collapse. The bridesmaid dress fit like a second skin. Pale silk that her mother had chosen, saying the color made Elena glow. She stared at her reflection in the bridal suite mirror. Makeup flawless. Hair swept into an elegant twist. Everything perfect on the surface. She pressed a hand to her still flat stomach. 2 days. She'd carried this secret for 2 days, turning it over in her mind like broken glass. Every scenario ended in destruction. Tell Marco before the wedding and risk him doing something reckless. Tell him after and become complicit in a deception that would only deepen. Tell no one and let the secret grow until it announced itself. You look beautiful, sweetheart. Her mother appeared behind her, radiant in ivory lace. Are you ready? Elena met her mother's eyes in the mirror. Saw such uncomplicated joy there that her throat closed. Ready, she lied. The ceremony unfolded like a dream someone else was having. Elena stood at the altar holding a bouquet of white roses, watching her mother pledge forever to a good man who deserved honesty. Marco stood across from her in his groomsman's suit, eyes forward, jaw tight. She wondered if he could feel her staring. If he knew something had shifted. I do, her mother said, voice clear and certain. The words echoed in Elena's skull. Legal bonds forming. Family structures solidifying. With 2 words, her mother had made Marco her stepbrother-in-law and in name, had made what they'd done even more impossible. His father slid the ring onto her mother's finger. They kissed. The crowd applauded. Elena's hands trembled around her bouquet. The reception bloomed across the garden estate, the same venue they'd toured weeks ago. Champagne flowed. Toasts rang out. Their parents danced beneath string lights while guests smiled and captured moments on phones. Elena moved through it mechanically, smiled for photos, accepted congratulations, avoided Marco with the precision of someone who knew exactly where he was every second. She made it until sunset. The golden hour light painted everything soft and forgiving. She escaped to a side terrace, away from music and celebration, and tried to breathe past the pressure in her chest. "You're avoiding me." He turned. Marco stood in the doorway, bow tie loosened, jacket abandoned. He looked exhausted. "Wrecked. Beautiful." "Yes," she admitted. "Because of what happened at the lake house. Among other things." He stepped onto the terrace. The door closed behind him, muffling party noise. "Elena, I meant what I said. Can't happen again." Today made that clear. They're married now. Legally you're. I'm pregnant. The words fell between them like stones into still water. She watched ripples of comprehension cross his face. Shock first, draining color from his skin. Then fear, raw and immediate. Then something else, something that made her breath catch. "You're certain?" 3 tests. All positive. He crossed to her in 2 strides. "When did you find out?" 2 days ago. 2 days. His voice cracked. "You've been carrying this alone for 2 days. I didn't know how to tell you. Didn't know if I should tell you before the wedding, ruin it for them, or after and become a liar, or..." "Stop." He took her hands, gripping tight enough that she felt his pulse hammering against her wrists. "Breathe. Just breathe." She hadn't realized she was hyperventilating until his hands steadied her. They stood locked together while music drifted from the reception. Slow song. Romantic and utterly inappropriate for this moment. "What do you want to do?" he asked quietly. The question broke something in her chest. He wasn't telling her what they had to do. Wasn't making decisions or running. He was asking. "I don't know," she whispered. "Every option destroys something. Keep it and we destroy their marriage. Don't keep it and we destroy ourselves. Tell them, lose them. Hide it, lose ourselves. Those aren't the only options. Aren't they?" His thumbs traced circles on her wrists. Unconscious. Soothing. "What if we just chose each other?" Elena's heart stopped. "Marco. I know what it sounds like. Selfish. Impossible. But I haven't been able to breathe properly since that night in Italy. Every moment since has been performance. Playing a role. Pretending I don't feel what I feel. Our parents will be devastated," he finished. "I know. Believe me, I know. My father finally found happiness again. Your mother glows every time she looks at him. Breaking this will break them. Then we can't. Can't we?" He moved closer, his forehead nearly touching hers. "Or are we just choosing their happiness over ours? Their future over our child's?" The word child made it real in a way the pregnancy tests hadn't. Elena's free hand moved to her stomach again. "I don't want to be the villain in their story," she said. "Neither do I. But I also don't want to be the ghost in my own life anymore." His voice dropped, fierce and protective. "That night in Italy. I meant what I said at the lake house. Meant something. You mean something. This," he touched her stomach gently, reverently, "means something." Laughter erupted from inside. Their parents probably, surrounded by friends, celebrating love without complications. "They'll hate us," Elena whispered. "Probably. We'll lose them. Maybe. For a while. Maybe forever. You're willing to risk that?" He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. "Are you asking if I'm willing to risk my father's disappointment for a chance at something real? For you. For our child." The intensity in his gaze stole her breath. "The choice was made in Italy," he continued. We just didn't know it yet. Everything since has been trying to unmake it, and look where that's gotten us. Standing at our parents' wedding pregnant, pretending we're strangers. Elena's vision blurred. This will be so hard. I know. They might never forgive us. I know that too. We'll be the people who ruined their happiness. Or, his hand covered hers on her stomach, we'll be the people who chose honesty over comfort. Who chose love over convenience. Love. He'd said it so casually, like it was obvious. Like it had always been there. Maybe it had. Inside, the DJ announced the last dance. Final calls for the bar. The wedding winding down. We don't have to tell them tonight, Marco said. We can wait. Plan. Figure out how to do this in a way that honors them while honoring ourselves. And in the meantime, we stop pretending. His hand tightened on hers. No more distance. No more performance. We're together. We figure this out together. Together. The word felt like permission. The terrace door opened. His father's voice called out. Marco, you out here? We're getting ready for the send-off. They had seconds. Elena looked at Marco, at the determination and fear and hope written across his face. Looked at their joined hands. At the future forming beneath them. Okay, she breathed. His eyes widened. Okay. Together. We do this together. Relief transformed his features. He lifted her hand, pressed his lips to her knuckles. Together. Marco. His father called again. Coming. He turned back to Elena. Meet me at my car in 10 minutes. She nodded. He squeezed her hand once more, then disappeared inside. Elena stood alone on the terrace, hand on her stomach, listening to celebration music fade. In 10 minutes, she'd walk away from this reception. From the safety of pretense. Toward difficult conversations and shattered expectations. Toward her mother's pain and his father's anger. Toward Marco. No choice. She took a breath. Smoothed her bridesmaid dress. Walked back inside with her head high. The reception was breaking up. Guests gathering for the farewell. Her mother glowed, throwing her bouquet to squealing bridesmaids. Elena slipped through the crowd, unnoticed in the chaos. She reached the parking lot. Found Marco's car. Found him leaning against it, tie completely undone now, looking toward the garden where their parents were still celebrating. He saw her. Straightened. She crossed to him. Took his offered hand. You sure? He asked. No. But I'm doing it anyway. He opened the car door. She slid inside. He rounded to the driver's seat, started the engine. They pulled away from the venue slowly. In the rear-view mirror, the celebration continued. String lights twinkled. Their parents danced. Marco reached across the console. Found her hand. Elena laced their fingers together and faced forward, toward the dark road ahead, toward whatever came next. Together. If you made it to the end of this forbidden love story, drop a subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And here's the real question. Do you want to see part 2? Should we follow Elena and Marco as they face their parents with the truth? Let me know below because your comments decide if this story continues.